Heyo, how's everybody doing today? It is Zach Heilman here, back in studio, in a different looking studio, as we are here for another edition, week 6 of 4th and 4, the Unhinged Radio pregame show for your NFL action. Zach Heilman, of course, myself being in, and we're introducing in the usual crew of suspects. Sans Jim this week, unfortunately. We have DJ Stewart and Kelsey Coyne of High Low Sports joining as always. I'm from Gridiron Gallery, making up 3/4 of 4th and 4. Gentlemen, how are we doing this week? It's funny, we all share a brick wall this week for reasons that I won't get to yet. I'll let you guys explain later, but how's it going?
Man, it's going, dude. I'm excited. This week is... For exact reasons we will get into later. I mean, you can tell I'm clean shaven, so obviously something is happening today that we are gonna see people that I needed to shave up whatever was growing on my face, whatever dirt was on my face before. So yeah, look, I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to talk about not just this week in football, but what we have expected coming up later today.
And on behalf of the human population, we appreciate the dirt no longer on your face as well too.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. I love you too, buddy. Jeez.
Just here to help out. I'm the voice of the people. I'm the voice of the voiceless, if you will.
It just felt so self-deprecating. We were prepping for the show. You're like, oh, this is dirt on my face. This muck will go away before we get on air.
I said it last night, and it stood true. The first thing I did this morning when I woke up after buying a new razor last night was shave.
Well, gentlemen, good to be back in here. I missed you guys last week. So it's nice to be sitting in the host seat this time. The host couch, I guess. It's really a couch. It's not a computer chair. Anyway, let's get into this, guys. So, jumping into things, welcoming into the first quarter, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get some hot topics, and let's go. Why not with the hottest topic of them all, the one that no one can escape, the endless vacuum that is Bruce Allen's emails that the NFL just loves so much to be using right now. Talking about John Gruden resigning because, well, stuff was said. We have Adam Schefter doing horrible journalistic practices. We have an NFL lawyer talking buddy and making horrible jokes. Who else is going to be on the chopping block? Or do we want to be jumping on and let's just get into the whole thing with John Gruden? Because Gruden's is the one that everyone's been talking about. It's the big one. It's the grandiose piece of these emails so far that has really made someone that was considered in high regard with 2 franchises fall from grace in a matter of days.
Yeah. No, it's been a very interesting email situation going on here. This whole thing is, I don't want to give too much time to Gruden because truthfully what he did, what he said, it should never be said, period, across the board. If I'm going to make an especially moment, especially not on a work email, but truthfully should never be said, period, ever.
Right.
Let's be very clear about that. Those things should never be said. We're not saying it shouldn't just be said not in work, but literally just not be said, period. That's what I'm saying. And this whole thing is just I want to know, DJ mentioned it on our last episode of the podcast, but I want to know who's next because this is getting crazy. You mentioned Schefter and that journalistic issue. DJ and I, we talked about this. I mean, it's kind of one of those things quotes. Okay. Just to make sure you're clarifying quotes, parts of stories. I think I probably, it would be a less of a, oh boy type of a moment, but a whole unwritten story on a very sensitive topic. That was okay, that's a little too much. Let's not get carried away here.
Calling Allen Mr. Editor was just the cherry on top of this entire thing for that too.
Yeah,
that was the ultimate spite. And we talked about who is next. Well, the president of the Pro Football Hall of Fame recently decided to retire as well too. And so the question is he getting out ahead of it? Maybe is this just a coincidence? It really makes you wonder how deep do these emails really go? And to jump on Kelsey's point too. You should never say it in general, but the fact that you have the audacity to send it through work emails, that's an absolute mess in itself as well, too. So hopefully this thing sorts itself out, and whoever needs to go gets gone real quick, because this is not looking pretty, and I can only imagine who is next to this point. Maybe Roger Goodell somehow fitted in there as well, too, and that's why the email release chain's been a little bit suspect, if you will, because it's nothing. What would you look at that? John Gruden, nothing. Adam Schefter, it's been a really weird chain of events how it's linked. This is supposed to be a Washington football team investigation. but everyone not associated with Washington is catching the smoke. It's kind of interesting how that works out. It's different when you're the guys who write the checks as opposed to the guys who cash the checks.
How many fans do you think want Goodell somehow wrapped up in this and just give him more flack? Because it's just it seems like it's a popular thing to do anyway.
Is it possible to say all of them? Like, is that an option, or like 98.95% if we want to get into some weird decimals? Like, it seems like a very long list.
Can we speak for everyone that is in the NFL?
I can speak for myself, and I can tell you that yes, I want Goodell to be wrapped up in this, just because he's not been he's like the Paul Tagliabue again. I don't look at him and think like I feel comfortable with him leading the league. I really don't. He's not harsh on penalties he should be harsh on, and he's not. And then things like it's deflated footballs. He's like, "Oh, you're suspended for a year at first," and then like that gets back down to 4 games. But anything serious, it's like 2 games, and then the PA gets involved. Like, no, we should probably move that to 4, 2 games.
It's like 2 games,
2.5, 3/4, something like that. It's very the punishment system's been very inconsistent.
He got paid so much money that NFL fans were like, "You got to be kidding me." And it caused such an issue that the NFL had to revoke their 501c status so they can no longer bear the salaries of their top executives.
Right.
So we don't know how much Roger Goodell is actually making nowadays in the NFL.
Well, this ties in. It's funny. The NFL is in hot water for this. And they're used to this point with covering up just any of the internal structure. But this also ties in because we also have the NFL St. Louis case being updated even more so now. Now there isn't really going to be much movement until I think December is when we have the next piece of it, where 4 of the owners, which are the Clark family from the Kansas City Chiefs, you have Jerry Jones, you've got the Kraft family. And I believe there's a 4th one I'm missing out, but 4 of the 6 that were asked to give financial records for that didn't give them over completely. So, talk about hot water. You got hot water email wise, where you're having to figure this out. And people are now asking question 2, is the NFL just going to use this as blackmail chips? Because you can hold these emails and start to kind of get your way if you want. 10 years worth of just documents, all that you can kind of use. That's what they did with John Gruden anyway. It was reported they're the ones that leaked these and dropped these 4 people to see. And basically, it's been hinted that they wanted him gone, and this was the way to do it. And it was to make it look like a mess for the Raiders, and that's what they did. And now St. Louis might get its way and somehow might get an expansion franchise because the NFL's been talking about that too. Weird how it works,
I feel like the NFL has been talking about expansion franchise here for, I don't know, 20 years again since the last expansion franchise. Like, what was that, Tennessee?
Like 2002, if I'm not
Houston would be 02.
Coach Steve.
Can we find a video Goodell with sneaky fingers?
Yeah, like I feel like they've been talking about doing another expansion since then, and it's been always like obviously London being one of them, especially lately. Mexico City, we've talked about this before. St. Louis being another one. Like,
oh yeah.
There's so many options. I just do it at this point in time. I'm tired of hearing about it. Just do it. I love more football. Give me more football. Yes. Give me more teams. Yes. That sounds great. Fantastic. Cool. Maybe you can actually, give me a reason for 18 game schedule by adding more teams.
That'd be nice.
Maybe add in a bye week in there too, because otherwise by week 18 we'll have the C squads in there with more teams, which means more players, which means more injuries. We're gonna end up having like the C squad and the D squad in there as well too. I'll be suiting up at this rate too, so maybe add in an extra bye week in there too.
Yeah, college football 2 byes guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
I would like that. You're adding that much. You're adding that much to these people, to these players' plates, and you already had enough complaining about when they expanded. Might as well throw them a bone, Or the PA does its job. The NFL PA does its job and makes them throw a bone. That would be good too. Talk about that front. Some players in recent years, even the negotiations, have felt that they've kind of dropped the ball in some areas too. So,
here you go, Zach. This could lead us into our next topic for Coach Steve here. Is the Bears going to Arlington?
Oh yeah, I heard about this because the talk is you can put another team in Chicago because it's in that top 3 market space. The team hasn't succeeded in recent years, so you can see fans bailing on the Bears and going, well, maybe this franchise will work. And then it creates a little bit of a rivalry in city, kind of like how you have the Sox and the Cubs. you can kind of force it that way. Maybe do like a crosstown classic in the football sense. I've heard about that.
Yeah,
it's not the first time.
I like the idea, honestly. I'm not against the idea of having another Chicago team, but I will say I do think there's other cities that need to be filled before you add a second Chicago team. That's
Right.
my personal opinion. I think the idea of adding somebody in Texas, I think Texas is overcrowded. I just like I think California doesn't need another team. But I do think adding one in St. Louis, potentially adding one in Birmingham, depending on what happens with the USFL, obviously that's a big issue there. I do think adding one like Pacific Northwest somewhere. You have Oregon, you have Montana, you have Idaho, you have Utah. Any one of those states would happily take a team, and they would 100% support them because half of those fans split between the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Niners. A third of those fans split to each one. But yeah, if you can get them all on the same side, and then if you put a team in Portland or even in Montana, you add that Cascadia rivalry into it. I mean, that's a big regional rivalry, so it's very interesting. So I don't know.
You got Portland, there's Oklahoma City. Like, there's a whole lot of places you could move them as well, too. I mean, if you're going to do it, just do it right. Don't put 4 more teams in Los Angeles or something ridiculous like that, or 3 more teams in Chicago. Like, let's spread the wealth a little bit, just a little bit, get more people invested instead of just trying to reinvest in the exact same people.
Well, let me just say on a baseball stance with this quote here from Coach Steve. I haven't heard that, but I mean, unless you just don't. I mean, I know the area of the town has its reputation where, Comiskey, the Cell, whatever you want to call it at this point. Guaranteed rate is what it is called right now. I know it has a reputation, but why would you go to Soldier Field to play baseball? I wouldn't do it. I mean, I just wouldn't do it.
Look, they have enough issues with the grass at Comiskey, Old Comiskey, or like you said, Cell, or whatever they want to call it. They have enough issues with keeping the grass there.
Even Soldier Field has a reputation for its turf.
Let's go take it to Soldier Field where they have all the problems in the world with their turf. Let's go do that. That's a great idea for oh my God, I'd hate to see baseball being played in that cavernous stadium.
No.
Hey, it's better than playing FedEx Field if anything's taught us in recent memory.
Well,
too. So, I mean, we'll take what we can get at this point.
You got sewage raining on people that are trying to buy a ticket.
Look, anything is better than FedEx Field. I could play in a park that is made out of cement, and I'm still in a better facility than FedEx Field.
Could play on some gravel and be in better shape afterwards.
When you see Coach Steve, as he makes another comment here, well, see, this is where it ties into the extra team in Chicago. Like the city, because they would lose their rentee, because they're the Bears are renting Soldier Field from Chicago itself. There's where your team can jump in, and they would. What are you going to do? The city won't build you a new stadium, and Arlington Heights would be taken at that point. You have a stadium of 61,000 shown there that still has business suites and all the shebang to where it's NFL qualified. That way the city gets its cash, and you get a team that Mayor Lightfoot can just go. I'm not going to flip the bird on this, but you'll get the drift. She would do that in a heartbeat, knowing her attitude. So I see that as the case, but that's long down the road, and it's very hypothetical. I'm going to pitch this before we end the first quarter, and it's only because for some reason people ask this question, and I just don't think it's even reasonable. John Gruden, any chance he is ever allowed back in the NFL after this whole debacle?
Kelsey, you can go first.
Is there a chance? Unfortunately, there is, and I'm going to say that just because for some reason he is a pariah that forever will be a part of the NFL. I mean, it just feels like it, but I hope to God he is not a part of the NFL from now on. He does not deserve to be a part of the NFL from anymore. But I think that there's somehow going to be a way in 5 to 10 years.
I hope so, but I have no idea. Maybe I have to say a likely chance. Maybe he ends up on TV again somehow too. Maybe he ends up being the Fox News sports guy. I have no idea, honestly. Some weird things could happen, but I have a feeling that it might not be the end. But I do kind of hope so. I feel like he should just ride off into the sunset with his 60 of $100 million collected.
Yeah, look, ESPN has a great track record with hiring people. Let me tell you. So, that's it's completely possible that a great character like that gets hired by it. If anybody's wondering, I'm being 1,000% sarcastic. Let me just clarify that for the clarification purposes. I'm not being serious.
Look, it's funny how ESPN they're actually getting seems more flack for the Schefter thing than they are for John Gruden, and because a lot of the emails are when he was hired there for Monday Night Football as an analyst, and people just are bashing most of the Raiders, but ESPN has gotten little flack on this end, it seems, compared to like Adam Schefter's also terrible debacle in the way that he practiced his own journalistic principles. I don't understand. Like, let's play the sequel here, okay? Dude was under your banner. You got to be getting on them, you know. Just saying. That's the way it is, though. And luckily, this story, I don't think it's going to end in terms of who else might come up, but at least for the sake of, you know, we had a nibble, unfortunately, with the racist email first, and then the floodgates opened, and now we can officially just say that Band-Aid's ripped off. The Raiders are going to have to figure this out. They're going to have one hell of a season ahead of them with interim head coach and a lot of questions on just organizational practices and hires.
Addition by subtraction, it will pay off.
Yes.
Their formations will get a lot better because Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow will always be on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully.
Right. Hey, gotta hope they step up. And they're gonna need to this week here. They got a supposedly better matchup, although I didn't think the Bears would win last week. Most of us didn't. Hector, aren't you Hector? Or should I
Hector figures it all out. I don't get it, but he figures it all out. He is a football guy and forever will be a football guy. I'm just going to call him the football guy from now on.
Well, I'll tell you who is the guy in terms of our betting segment as we enter in the second quarter here. DJ, I know, loves to get I would say almost like a machine gun type of style when it comes to looking for this type of stuff as he's getting geared up and ready, getting pistols drawn at his side. Entering the second quarter, guys, are going to help you at least look at some potential ways maybe you can win a little bit of money today. So let's kick things off. I'll give DJ the floor here. What's the rundown for you, bud?
All right, we're going to start just looking at some of the spreads. And one spread that sticks out to me, it's Pittsburgh is a -4.5 favorite over Seattle. I know there's no Russell Wilson. I know there's no Chris Carson. Geno Smith looked all right in relief duty against the Rams, who are much better than Pittsburgh. Running backs, Alex Collins, like they boot to running back by committee anyway. They'll be fine. That Steelers defense, while it does have playmakers in the front seven, it's not nearly as stout as it was, for example, last year. They can get had. You could put points up on them. So I look for maybe Geno Smith in Seattle. Maybe they could. I'm not saying they win the game necessarily, but Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, 4.5 points is a pretty good spread. Look for Seattle to at least cover that. If they lose, maybe it's like by a field goal or something, but Seattle can cover that game. And then also Raiders versus Broncos. Broncos a 4.5 favorite over those Raiders, probably in part because of the John Gruden situation. I think it's going to have a reverse effect. And because of getting him out of there, I think the team's going to rally together. And I think they're going to find a way to pull this one out. So maybe take the Raiders to win outright, even with the Broncos as a 4.5 point spread as well. And now if we go to some of these over-unders, since he is only a -190 favorite over the Lions, that seems kind of low, if you will, considering the Lions are kind of, they're the punching bag this year, more or less. It's like, all right, well, there's an automatic W. They're going to be underdogs in every single game this year. Cincinnati, a team that was 3-2, was 8 missed extra points / field goals away last week from being 4-1. I would take Cincinnati in that one to possibly earn you a lot more money back just based on the smaller over-under spread. And the Ravens -152 over the Chargers. That's a very close one. That might as well be a pick 'em. I feel like you could put some money on the Chargers and feel really comfortable about that one because how good both of those teams really are. I mean, right now it's a battle for the number 1 seed in the AFC. They're 1-2 if playoffs ended today. So maybe put a few dollars on the Chargers. See if you can turn $5 in like 8 or something like that. Like not a big betting differential. Most of them make a little bit of sense this week. But for that one, the minus, I would lean towards the Chargers in that one as well too. So I'd be willing to take the Chargers outright. And now we'll go to the over-unders, the ones that the betting sharks really adore. Cowboys versus Patriots, 50.5. I'm going to say go under on that one. I think the Patriots defense is going to corral the Cowboys offense just a little bit. Zeke is a little banged up. The secondary for the Patriots is still very, very good. We saw what they could do against Tampa Bay. They can get clamped down really quickly. And I think the Cowboys defense is going to harass Mac Jones and make it difficult. So look for a 21-24-ish type of game, like maybe 48, 45. I don't think they're going to crack the 50.5. And then the Bears and the Packers, it's only 44 for the over-under. I'd say definitely take the over because if recent memory has taught us anything, if the Packers want, they'll score 44 on the Bears by themselves. And Justin Fields in the offense against that very, very weak Packers defense, riddled with injuries, no Yair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, and the Bengals went up and down the field virtually at will. It took Joe Burrow throwing picks as the only thing that could stop them. Look for Justin Fields to continue to build off of what he's done the last few weeks, and maybe the Packers still probably win like 35-21, but I think they're going to clear that over. I think by themselves, the Packers could probably get close to clearing that 44-point over-under. So those are the ones that stick out to me so far on the on the betting lines, I know there's a couple of teams in there that you guys have an affiliation to, if you will.
Yeah, no joke,
affinity
right?
for, that's the phrase I was looking for. There we go.
I'll be honest, you kind of took everything that I was looking at and just already said it already. So just giving you just some of the ones that I really like the odds are. I'm looking at the Texans Colts, and for some reason I know, look, Ty is returning to the house that Ty built in this one, and he plays well against the Texans. With the over/under sitting around 44, 43.5, 44, I could see this one going higher, and that 10.5 point spread. I mean, I don't know, man. The Texans have been playing well. Davis Mills has been playing well. I think that's one you could recoup a lot of money on.
It's a 1-14 versus a 1-14. There should not be a 10-point spread in any way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just it.
Like for Davis Mills did last week, there should not be that. Like you still should have some doubt as you can get that double-digit point spread anyway.
Exactly. And then looking at the next one, the Rams and Giants, 7.5 point spread only, by the way, when you consider that Daniel Jones is coming off of concussion protocol. There will be no Darius Slayton. There will be no Sterling Shepard. There will be no Kenny Golladay. There will be no Saquon Barkley for the Giants. And you have a fully healthy Rams team at a only 7.5 point spread. Take the Rams 100% on this game. Like, this is guaranteed a Rams win. You're recouping your money, no problem whatsoever.
Is this your Drew Lock of the week?
This you could say would be my Drew Lock of the week, without a doubt. Now there's one, and this one is just because, again, the Chiefs, the way they're performing this season, I'm looking at the 6.5 point spread for the Washington football team. I feel like Washington could upset the Chiefs in this game. I feel like it's a possibility. That's not who my pick is for this one by any means. But when you look at Kansas City, you lost Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're going to be running on backups here. And then obviously Patty hasn't been the same Patty this season. Tyreek is still Tyreek, but that doesn't mean much. But then you have Taylor Heineke and Terry McLaurin just out here dropping dimes. Gibson is a fantastic darling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Give me Washington to cover the spread at the very least. And again, would not surprise me if they pull out a victory, but at the very least covering the spread, that 6.5 point spread, I feel like easy money for that one for sure. But those are the big ones I'm looking at, and I'm just like, eh. And then obviously the Chargers, DJ mentioned this one, the Chargers Ravens, the Ravens with a 3-point favorite. I don't why? Have they not been watching the Chargers? Like, potentially MVP candidate? I don't know. Give me the Chargers.
Another potential MVP candidate. I mean, Lamar be Lamarin out there. He be fanging out there.
Yeah, but I mean that's fair. But I look at it and just, I don't know, man. Give me the Chargers in that one.
So this plays into what I was going to give into a take with the over/under for that game. Last I've been able to find for my records is 48. So I don't think that's going to be the case. After what I saw last week with the Chargers, just against the Browns, and what the Ravens been putting up, even with some pieces lost in that offensive scheme, I think you're going to see some fireworks. I think it's going to be an over situation here. Could be wrong. Maybe you see some adjustments. It kind of slows down, but this just feels like two explosive, dynamic offenses that defense to me will matter only in key turnovers or fourth down stops late in the fourth quarter. So I think you're going to see back and forth gameplay where you don't know who's going to be winning, and everyone's going to be like glued to your TV screen for most of the contest that way.
Just going to piggyback off of that too. The last one I saw is a 51 over/under. Still take the over on
that. So it's better, yeah. So a bit better.
And, I mean, just Carson Wentz threw for 400 yards on half an ankle against him. Derek Carr threw for 400 yards on the Ravens. The Chargers, Baker Mayfield lit up that defense a lot too. Like both defenses are good. They make plays, but they can get had as well too. Like they're not shut down lockdown defense. They're opportunistic where it's like, all right, just give our MVP guy the ball 1 or 2 extra times. Let Derwin James make some random play, something like that. Let Marlon Humphrey or Calais Campbell make a random play. Good to go. So I think I agree with you on this one with those two guys. Look for a 51, that to be a well over. And if it's a blowout, I could see it being, even if it's a blowout, they'll still crush it as well.
Yeah. That is a very good point. I think either one really. I would say that if I'm going to be safer for like blowout territory, I'm actually going to go with the Chargers on that, because you have a unit that is healthy, shockingly enough healthy
for now.
For now, knowing the Chargers, something's gonna hit them at the worst possible time when everything's going just fantastically out in LA. Got to build that fan base. Oh, I don't know. Keenan Allen goes down or something. I don't know. But yeah, I'll go over that. And just, Kelsey took like the two I was talking.
I blame DJ. He took all of mine.
It's fine. DJ kind of is the start because he gets everything encompassed. And then we just kind of go, all these are great takes. We'll give you bits on what we can.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Onto yours. He's
money talks. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to help you guys win money. I apologize.
The Colts Texans one, I got to touch back one more time because again, I don't like the spread whatsoever. Like I don't even, and it's mainly I actually would stay away from it because again, I think it hinges fully on was Davis Mills' performance last week against New England a fluke? Because if it's not a fluke, then it's more an uncertainty practice for me. I am not sure what I'm going to get this week from Davis Mills since I've seen both sides of that coin in 2 previous weeks this season, back to back, mind you. So I don't want to be that guy betting for or against the spread on that game just because it all comes down to if your rookie quarterback's going to be throwing for 300 and looking like a star again. No, thank you. I am not up for that risk on my money. Even though gambling is a risk on your money anyway, I try to minimize said risk. That is where I'm going with this, if you know what I mean.
No doubt. I think it's very interesting to see nonetheless.
Mm-hmm. And just to add on to that too, we talked about how the Lions are kind of the punching bag. Cincinnati's only a 3.5 point favorite over them as well too. So you have 2 1-4 teams with a 10-point spread, a 3-2 versus an 0-5 team, and a 3.5 point spread.
Mm-hmm. Now, to be fair, like
there's evidence for that spread though, so that makes sense.
Like to me, I look at that spread and I'm like, okay, but the Lions are also like 5 plays away and 5 unlucky plays away from being 3-2 themselves. Like,
right?
I look at that. You got
maybe 2
or
3.
A record-setting field goal that bounces off the front of the field goal post and then bounces in, off, mind you, after they blew a delay of game call. That should be.
So I mean, 3-2 versus 1-4. It's still a 7-point swing when you look at the difference of those. That seems like a bit of a dramatic spread on my part. If you're gonna have 3.5 for Cincinnati and the Lions, then maybe the Colts Texans should be like 5 or 6. Is what.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. The Colts Texans should. Yeah.
That spread's kind of stupid. Anyone, if the Colts cover that, well, that would be the first time they didn't let people down all season. So we'll see if they can pull that off. But something tells me this is gonna be a 3-point game. Like just the way it goes.
Yeah. Before we move on, I need to show this because it was from earlier. This is beautiful. Thank you, Hector, for dropping this. Frank Caliendo will be hired before Gruden does.
Yeah, he'd be better with his personnel grouping, so it wouldn't be a bad hire. I mean, he'd know how to run the offense a little bit better, so I'd go for it.
If he can mimic any attitude of a coach in this league, so just got to bring that swagger, and then the rest is learning on the fly.
Just don't give him access to his own emails. Just don't give him his own email account.
Oh, yes. God. No, thank you.
Avoid that as long as possible.
Yeah, I think Mark Davis learned his lesson from that. Although, again, mostly it was ESPN's fault, really, because they're the ones that dealt with a lot of that crap. So should be talking to them more. But even so, like Mark Davis might have known about it. Who knows? That's all I'll be saying. Folks, unfortunately, we do not have a halftime show this week. Just wasn't able to be in the cards. I don't know. I can do a song and dance here. If you guys trust me.
No, you're good. You're okay. You're okay.
No, you guys don't want me to.
You're all right. Don't worry about
it. I'm ahead.
Go 4th and 4. 4th and 4.
We're good.
There you go. So we did that in 1 minute. Okay, back to the draw. Back to your regularly scheduled program. We don't need to see that anymore.
Thank God. Because I actually changed my screen over just so I didn't have to see it.
Kelsey, you were in pain for like a second with us in the three panel, so I can't do too much more. We need you live for later today.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I guess you want to let the cat out of the bag. That could be our.
Maybe that's the halftime. You know what, Kelsey?
Let the cat out of the bag. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you will, please draw your attention to the screen as example 1A. Signed Troy Polamalu jersey giveaway. That will be today on the Colorcast app. Obviously, you see behind me, I'm talking 4 p.m. live on Colorcast. Well, join us 4 p.m. live on Colorcast as we will be live in Pittsburgh for the pregame tailgate here, all three of us. That's the reason why we share a brick wall right now.
Yeah.
We are about to drive out after the show. We will be heading to Pittsburgh. So join us, guys. If you haven't already seen our tweets, we will be, like I said, giving away this Troy Polamalu signed jersey. All you have to do is retweet, find the post on our Twitter page. It's right there pinned up on our Twitter page. Tag 2 friends and Colorcast. After you retweet it, tag 2 friends and Colorcast app. Follow Colorcast, and then make sure you've already downloaded and tuned in and you tune into the Steelers Tailgate Show at 4 p.m. today, and we'll be giving away the jersey with Stryker from Steelers Nation Podcast at around 7 o'clock. Now, Stryker is not feeling well today, so we may or may not give away with him. He may or may not be there. It just depends on how he's feeling. But I had the ability to go on a show with him this Friday. Had an absolute blast with him. It was fantastic, and then got to talk all Steelers things, which was very interesting for me. So it was a lot of fun, though. I enjoyed every moment of it. And while we're there, though, guys, we will be hanging out at the Terrible Tailgate here. This will be fantastic. They're also going to have Jeff Reed there. If you guys know anything about any former kicker for the Steelers, he'll be there as well. And that will be hanging out with the Terrible Tailgate, check it out. Go ahead, and tickets, you can get them at Eventbrite or go to the Terrible Tailgate or Steeler Nation or Steeler Gang on Twitter, and you can get your tickets there and find out all the more information on it. But we'll be hanging out with them as well, talking to a bunch of people down there. Maybe get to talk to Jeff Reed. We'll see. Justin will be joining us as well, the guy behind Steeler Nation. So he'll be joining us on Colorcast at some point in time later on today. But guys, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. We've been super excited about this one for a while. Shout out to Colorcast and Evan and Tristan and allowing us to do this. This is going to be a whole lot of fun. And if you're there, come grab a beer from us if you're 21 and over. And it's going to have a QR code. And you got to do is scan that. And that's how you download Colorcast app on your iPhone. So it's going to be that easy.
ID will be required. So if you're under 21, don't try it.
Look, hey, legally speaking, you're not wrong. Like we might have to start checking IDs at this point in time.
It's okay. I once bounced for like 8 minutes at a bar before I could spot a fake ID.
This is indeed called covering your ass.
Yeah.
So,
legally speaking, you must be 21 or over to get the beer from us.
No funny business now.
Well, I can't really get not too much jokes. That's the real deal, folks.
Yeah, that's a fact. There's not a joke about that one. That's a fact.
Just throwing the disclaimer out there before we forgot it. That's like the copyright. You just need to have it in there as well too. Be 21 or over, and then come hang out.
Yeah,
exactly. Or hang out, but don't get beer if you're under 21.
We're stoked for this. I'm stoked for this. I was insanely excited to do the road trip up here. Still got more driving to do later, but right now I'm happy to be in Cleveland, Ohio, baby.
Look, the perks of our recent move is like all of a sudden, everything just became within drivable distance. So
you aren't wrong.
Yeah,
you are not wrong.
It's a fantasy location, but we have more to talk about when it comes to fantasy, don't we, Zach? Coming up.
I love that you did that segue. If you did, that was perfect. Thank you, DJ.
I got you.
You be in the wingman of the show right now. Oh, at least
little jet pass.
In that regard. That was nice. That was nice. Little jet sweep to me, keeping the flow going in the right direction. Let's talk.
Fully trying to avoid continuing on.
Oh my God. Let's talk fantasy, folks. Quarter 3 is underway. After getting our halftime announcement out of the way, which again, going to be awesome for that later today if you guys can make it out there in Pittsburgh. Anyway, here we go. Start and sits for your fantasy, or just things to look out for your fantasy rosters. All of us play, or at least are associated in a same league together anyway, or play multiple leagues anyway. So we got plenty of takes. I mean, I'm in 8 of them, for crying out loud. I got all these crazy ones I got to be watching out for whatsoever. You know what? I'll kick this thing off here. First thing, and actually this will be straight for our contest. I hope you have I hope that you do have Claypool at least. I'm going to be saying that right now. That is going to be in Pittsburgh. That's going to be one of the guys you're going to be looking out for, at least in the stardom for me. Mainly because Juju Smith-Schuster's not in. And, someone's got to absorb a few more targets. Always watch out, if you aren't having to diversify the catches, someone's going to be absorbing a little bit more. So Chase Claypool is going to be one of my choices. If you have him on your roster, funny enough, I have him on one of mine. I'm excited today, especially considering that you add in the fact that Seattle is god-awful right now defensively in any facet. Next live at Soldier Field. I know I'm advocating for that. If Evan,
we might have one already planned out that we can potentially release the details on sooner or later. But we'll get back to that one later.
Yeah, a little bit later. We'll talk. We'll be in the car. It'll be talking about in the cards, you know. Yeah. Anyway, Chase Claypool going with the receivers as well. Kadarius Toney as well. He has been announced active as of this morning. So
unless he punches somebody again.
Right. let's keep that in mind. Game day hasn't really started yet. So right now, I mean, someone's gonna come after us and be like, dude, he hit a teammate. He got set. This was supposed to make or break my fantasy roster. You lost me money. What is wrong with you? No, but like I would do that. I would choose up like Toney as well. And really just, you know, I think those two are great options. I like Toney alone for how ravaged Giants are in that regard. I think that it's worth your pickup. I would say that Devin Booker would be that, although I'm worried about Devin Booker's production. You know, yes, he does get to stand in for Saquon Barkley this week, but on the opposite side of that coin, man was extremely inefficient last week, and the Rams aren't going to give him too much more favor, if you ask me, to get much more after first contact type of runs. So yeah, I'd be a little afraid. Anything that's kind of like last week too. Anything Rams Chargers, I think you're going to have a good day. I got a good feeling it's going to be one of those games that you just any players on those two teams, it's going to be nice. Same goes for Cardinals Browns. Just start anybody that's on that roster that at least is a reasonable, you know, person for any production. I think it's going to be a good day either way for those two, unless at least the Browns come up and show up, make it defensive hell, you know, and everyone is sad. So that's just me. Yeah.
Well, all right. Look, that's fine. You mentioned. I'm gonna start with the Cardinals Browns one you mentioned. So I have the issue of struggling between having to choose Kyler Murray here in this game or choosing Matt Stafford in the Rams game. Anybody guessing which way I'm going?
I would say you're going with Stafford.
I am absolutely going with Stafford because I do not trust that man named Myles Garrett to not ruin my fantasy football day. And I'm going to be completely honest with you, that is terrifying. And then also you have to consider Cliff Kingsbury out with COVID. There were also 2 other members of the team out with COVID that I know of for sure. But then also you have, injury-wise, Nick Chubb in this game, not going to be playing. So that is something you have to consider as well. But looking at some of the other games around the way, speaking of COVID-related issues, Damian Williams will not be playing, which hurts me as well because I had a fantastic, week with him starting last week. Well, he won't be playing, so that means Khalil Herbert will be taking the load of the snaps there. Pick him up while you're there. And then also I had one more, and my brain just shut off on me. So we'll stick with those right now. DJ Moore also looking really good against Minnesota. He's going to be one that'll be fun to start as well. And, Chuba Hubbard.
Oh, yes.
Since no Christian McCaffrey in that game in Carolina, he looks to be getting the load of the carries. He got 101 yards in his last game against the Eagles, and so expect him to have himself a nice little game. And I talked about him in the preseason. I think he's one of my sleeper picks for a lot of teams out there. So if you need a running back on your roster, why not?
Well, he's shown up too. Like you always risk when you have the handicap about, is it really just that it was their best available? It's not actually someone that can step in and get the same production. But Hubbard actually is the guy that is living up to what is a pure handicap. Kind of like how Alexander Madison is this year, where he's taken a step where he's at least upgraded his game to where if you needed someone to just plug and play, whether it's, we're talking on a roster level or in a fantasy level, these guys come to play. Like it doesn't affect much production on that end,
And speaking of Alex Madison, Dalvin Cook will be returning this week.
Yeah, so much for that.
Yep.
It was a fun run for a few weeks. Who knows? Maybe we'll come back again, knowing Dalvin Cook.
You never know as well too. And Kelsey kind of stole my Khalil Herbert pick, so that was my gold mine on that one as well too. Going against the Packers, so we're gonna go past that one. Look,
Damian Williams out. Yeah.
There's a few bullets in the chamber as well too. Speaking of running backs, check out Brandon Bolden, the Patriots running back. Demetri Harris is questionable. He'll probably play, but he won't be the same. Not saying he'll get a lot of yards on the Cowboys, but in a PPR league, I can see him catching 4, 5, 6 passes. There's 6 points, and then throwing a handful of yards. Maybe get you 10 points just off of that. Just a really easy, lazy, not really effective in game 10 points, but it counts in fantasy, and that's all that really matters. Obviously, Khalil Herbert going against the Packers defense. Kelsey kind of hit on that one as well too. I like Emmanuel Sanders this week, the receiver for the Bills, to go. Maybe not go off, but maybe get you 4 catches and a touchdown, something like that, going against the Titans secondary. Not exactly stout, if you will. And the Bills offense is firing on all cylinders, including a few cylinders they don't even own. They're finding a way to fire on as well, too. So check them out as well. And then just another one. You talked about no Nick Chubb for the Browns, some injuries in that game. Check out Dimitri Felton. He's the third string running back who's mostly like a kick returner and spell fun running back as well. He's probably going to get more carries now with Kareem Hunt being the main guy than Felton being the spell guy. And he caught a screen earlier in this year and housed it for 50 yards. So, I mean, he's definitely capable of making plays. So check him out if you are really, really hurting for an extra flex or an extra running back. And a couple of guys I consider sitting. I'd probably sit Amari Cooper this week. He's a very boomer bust type player. Going into Patriots defense, I have to imagine they're going to key in on him. So I don't look for Amari Cooper to go off. I know there's no Stephon Gilmore there, who tends to be like the boogeyman for Amari Cooper, but I can't imagine Bill Belichick's going to let those guys get wide open, especially with a dinged up Zeke as well too.
Yeah, that's a dangerous one right there. And it's funny actually. Looking at one of the chats we had is can't wait to hear about Pittsburgh. We'll get to that in a minute, but it does remind me that if you don't have Geno Smith, if you don't have a quarterback, pick up Geno Smith. He is kind of a boomer bust as well. And I'll also say I have to worry about trying to start a defense, pick the Steelers because there's no running attack for the Seahawks, which is a big issue. But Geno Smith is 30-37 in his career, touchdown to interception ratio. So if you're picking the Steelers, you have a good chance for picks. However, that 30 touchdown situation is one that you're like, I'm not totally against it, to be honest with you. Like, I don't feel bad with Geno starting with these receivers in Pittsburgh. I think he has a chance to make a name for him, like make himself kind of a worthy, I won't say starter, but at least a very viable backup option for a lot of teams, whether he sticks in Seattle or not. I think this is his chance to show out, and I think he'll surprise some people in the first half. Obviously, I don't think they're going to win, but I do think he'll surprise some people in the first half. In fantasy, if you are struggling for a quarterback and your choices are Taysom Hill or somebody else, take Geno Smith. Like, that's where I'm going with it. Like, there are some quarterbacks out there I wouldn't want you to start, and right now I think Geno Smith is at least, I'd say, a top 38 option. Definitely top 32 for sure. But I don't know, man. That's just one that I have a sneaky feeling will have a good week this week.
It could be a gamble. He's already had some time in Seattle, to get used to. I know they switched offensive coordinators this offseason, so you got the caveat. But he looked comfortable last week. It looked like he was ready for that moment. With a full week of practice, I imagine that's going to be the case too. And it's not, it is a risk because any backup with a week off, any team that doesn't have to deal with the quick change mid-game has more time to study film and find any weaknesses anyway. That's one of the caveats. If you have someone like, for Christ's sake, the Bears, when they had Chase Daniel, it would be if he did a quick swap mid-game, they'd be fine because no one would be ready for him because they weren't preparing for Chase Daniel to be in the backfield. But give him a week or two, like give him that week of practice and the other, whoever they're playing next week to get set up. Completely different story. Everyone knows what the hell is going to happen at that point. So that's the risk you're playing, I think, with the Geno Smith as well. It's like, can he step up to that moment with a Steelers unit that's going to be at least should be prepared, should have studied in the film sessions, should be practicing where you're preparing for his mobility. Pretty much you can study it like Russell Wilson and mobility, I guess. But, all the pieces are there that you are set up for. So I don't know. If you're desperate, hey, go at it. Why not? Go nuts, kid.
If he's smart, he'll just throw it to Tyler Lockett frequently, and he'll be just fine. That's all you got to do if you're Geno. Just throw the ball to Tyler Lockett. You'll be good to go. Then eventually they're going to be like, all right, we'll double team Tyler Lockett. Then you fling it up to DK for 45 yards. Just don't try and fling it up to DK for 45 yards every play, and you'll be fine.
And Dallas out of the backfield he's an effective pass catching back. He's not going to be like a blow you up type of back, but he's an effective pass catching back. On top of that, you have tight ends that have not been used this season. Use them. Just use them, please.
They're 1-0 in games that feature that they actually use their tight end, so might as well keep it going as well too. Gerald Everett and Will Dissly can get it done. Like, you have what you need there. Just 1, 2, 3 balls out of your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, flick it. Like, you don't have to go bombs away every single play.
Both of their tight ends are so underrated and underutilized. I can imagine Gerald Everett going somewhere that's a pass-happy offense, and he would just have career numbers out of the gate. The guy has the intangibles, the length, and the athleticism, and as the hands we've seen too, to where he should be being utilized as one in a pass. And just he's the ideal modern-day tight end in terms of look. Like, why is this guy not being involved more? Although it's Seattle who underutilized Jimmy Graham in his prime. So, I should be taking back that question anyway. I answered my own statement. Still, it just feels bad because like him and Drissley have shown flashes, but they just don't utilize these guys like they should. It's sad.
Maybe Geno Smith at the helm is the guy that does it because you don't have that playmaker
Safety
Russell
valve.
Wilson to a fault. So that he does some amazing things that no one else can do, but he also does some miraculous things to a fault with how good he is. So maybe Geno Smith, the thing of the offense is one flat route to a tight end. Suddenly Will Dissly stiff arming people in the open field. 1, 2, 3, quick little stick route to Gerald. Maybe they do get involved today. So maybe you look at those guys too. If you really need someone on your fantasy team, like badly, like you're down bad, everyone's hurt, your guys are on bye weeks. You're like me and you thought Irv Smith was going to have a breakout year, but he's on IR with a knee injury. You maybe look at one of those guys as well, too, someone you could pick up just for the week or something like that, because I could see them being effective today. I don't know, though. Maybe it's a pipe dream, but it seems so simple for my armchair quarterback self.
Safety valves as tight ends, man. They're a commonality. You know?
And you got two good ones that have shown the ability to produce. I mean, Will Dissly's first game, he had like 3 catches for 170 yards and 2 touchdowns. Even though he's not fast by any means, it makes no sense. But he can get loose too, and we know what Gerald Everett could do. So Seattle, use your tight ends. If you need one, maybe go pick them up, but tread with caution.
Yeah. Very boomer busty feels right now that you could have this week if you're anything looking at Seattle. All right, guys, raise them up. It's fourth quarter time, baby. Get those hands up. It's time to talk about our games of the week. So, as you can see on screen, here is the standings currently as well as last week's picks. So, I was really in the dumps. I actually recovered. But as you can see, Hector he continues his tear and reign.
He is a football guy.
He is the football guy. If we had a Family Guy clone that was for sports, that is what his show would be called, is Football Guy. And it'd be about Hector's life on trying to balance both of these and being amazing at both versions of the sport by name. So as you can see, 55 and 20, dude keeps making a tear. Jim is holding on to second, and then me and DJ are bottlenecking the third position. And Kelsey, with being the risk taker that Kelsey is, I'm not even gonna try and elude away from that. He is currently sitting in last place, but that is okay. There's room for improvement.
I have a double or nothing case coming my way in the postseason that I'm ready to try to just double or nothing it up, and let's see what happens.
Well, yeah, you still have time, and again, knowing us, because we'll have our own point system for postseason anyway. You always have a chance to recover. So they got plenty of weeks ahead. It's the biggest season in NFL history. Remember that, guys.
Just saying, I started week 1 at 6-9 and have the best record since week 1. So I'm climbing. I'm getting back there. I mean, that tied for third thing is just it's just semantics at this point. It's on the comeback. It's on the upswing. You can't start in as big a hole as I did and just expect to make up for it in a day.
I'm just glad I have double-digit wins again. I was getting a little depressed.
Can we go back? Hold on. Let's just go back to this for a second.
Sure.
We just have to mention this. On average, we're all way above 500.
We are.
Like, we're all pushing 750, around the 700 mark, at least on our picks. If you guys happen to be, watching anybody on NFL or anything, on NFL Network, these guys average like 50%, 500 on your average picks, maybe 600 if they're really good, and they're blowing everybody out at 600. Here we are all above 700, and then there's Hector sitting around 800% completion, like success rate here, and it's like, again, I'm going to say it. We said it last year. I'm saying it again this year. Why are we so much better than the average when it comes to this? Because why can't we just be average? If we were just average, I would be blowing you guys out of the water. But no, I'm not. I'm looked at like I'm just a poor picker because I'm just, taking a few risks here and there. But everybody else gets their 400% and 480s. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I think
competing against freaking exceptional characters.
As I say, I think that's telling that our group of guys is really good at analyzing who's going to win and what traits are making for a winning contest. So
then you have Hector and his football knowledge,
general football knowledge. We just got to put that out there.
His FUTBOL knowledge.
There's football and there's football, so we got to keep those distinguished.
Again, yeah, I'll just bring this up.
Yeah, I got to bring that back up.
Yeah,
definitely put that back on the screen.
Hector, you're right, Hector.
It's a long year. Right. It's a long year ahead.
I mean, look, actually, to be fair, okay, now hold on. To be fair to this comment from Hector, not only are we being led by somebody who hosts a soccer podcast, we're also being trailed by somebody who hosts the other soccer podcast, featuring the guy who's leading us with the soccer podcast. So that's a thing too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So,
Well,
like,
tell
yeah,
you what,
yeah, Hector with his podcast, and we got us with Unhinged FC, and he's actually the logo for Unhinged FC.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful logo, by the way. It's just the chef's kiss. And anyway, let's get into these picks. As for anyone that hasn't joined the show before, we do 3 of the big games a week, usually Sunday night and Monday Night Football, and then one that we have to highlight during the Sunday slate of games. Obviously, we'll keep that in mind. Kicking things off, we are going to, let's see. Yeah, we'll do this Sunday prime game first. Yeah, or no, sorry, not prime. Yeah, Sunday afternoon that we really want to talk about. There's another one we want that we could have discussed, but hey, we're all in Cleveland. Let's just bring the Browns into the fray and talk about the Browns a bit. So the Brownies are going to be taking on the Cardinals, and they will be hosting the said Cardinals. I'm remembering Kelsey's organization of these home and aways this time. I'm catching on. So
it is the proper way to name them, so therefore it is what it is.
All right, whatever you say. Let's bring this back up here, just because I'm the only one in this group that is, at least that's here today, talking that picking Arizona. Everyone else is focusing on the Browns taking it in a home game. So tell you what, I'm going to go last. Just kind of here, I guess I'm kind of being sat down and told why I might be wrong. So that's how we'll format this. I'm gonna patiently cross my arms and listen in.
All right. Well, class is in session, sir.
All right.
But basically, this game's a complete mess. So this one doesn't even really count. I mean, you have a head coach out with COVID, along with a defensive lineman. You got one of the top 2 running backs in the game out with an injury. Like, this one's kind of a mess. The way I look at it, though, is Cleveland's reeling a little bit. Like, that loss to the Chargers, it's got to be holding them back, holding on to them a little bit. They have so much promise and hype. They're at home. Cardinals are coming in kind of after imagine they're coming down a little bit off of. We saw it after they beat the Rams. They kind of didn't have their best performance against the 49ers. It's still good enough to win in Trey Lance's first start. But I think they're going to come down just a little bit even more today. The undefeated thing, I think, probably ends here. I think the Browns are going to find a way to run, get Kareem Hunt involved still. It's Felton, who I mentioned as well. I think Kelsey said we have an Odell breakout last week. I'm going to say we have an Odell sighting this week. Not 100-yard, 2 touchdowns, but I'm going to say 60 yards, maybe a touchdown, like 12 fantasy points type of thing. Like, we find Odell today. They find a way to get him involved after the last 2 weeks full of questions. I think Baker continues to get used to playing with that injury as well, too. And he's like, all right, I'm on the field. I'm going to play through it. I'm just going to play. I think he's starting to get used to it. We saw against the Chargers. He made some pretty good plays. Most of his yards after catch. Cardinals defense is not as good as the Chargers, at least as far as the playmakers. I mean, you have Chandler Jones and Budda Baker. It's not quite Joey Bosa and Derwin James. It's still really close, honestly, but it's not quite there. I think they find a way to pick on the secondary a little bit, control the clock, and that pass rush is something else. Myles Garrett, I think Jadeveon Clowney is coming back, if I'm not mistaken. Takk McKinley. They have something with that pass rush, and I think the Chargers' offensive line is better than Arizona's as well. I think the Chargers are just different right now. I know Arizona's the undefeated team, but I look for the Browns to get this one going. This feels like the type of game the Browns come out of nowhere and win the last couple of years, too. It's like, oh, they're down and out. Oh, yep, they're for real again. We remember. They're not going to fall to 3-3. I can't see it. So look for the Browns, and that's why I think they take this one. I think Baker plays like he did last week, but he's not going against Justin Herbert. As great as Kyler Murray has been, it's not quite that filthy. And I think they find a way to just contain D-Hop enough from being out there somewhere the entire game.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to kind of piggyback off of this one and say the defense, you talked about the pass rush. I'm also going to add the corners in for Cleveland. The corners are deep enough that you don't have to worry about who's going to guard Christian Kirk as the third option or AJ Green as your third option. There are deep enough corners for this Browns team that are all healthy and ready to play and ready to give you the business. Greedy Williams was kind of the weak spot, I feel like, at this corner grouping. And here he is, like, number one right now. I believe Denzel Ward is coming back this week, and he'll be healthy. And that's on top of that. That's your guy that's going to stop D-Hop. So look, I look at that and then also add in what Baker's been doing. I called his 303 touchdowns. Well, it was 302 touchdowns. Should have been 3 if his receiver decides to look up at the very end of the game and they win that game as well. Or if he, doesn't have Odell drop a ball or doesn't miss a wide open Odell on a backside corner. But, that's neither here nor there. But
and to piggyback off that, Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome are both questionable. So they could be getting a lot of their guys back as well, too. They look like they might play. We'll have to wait and see. And the underrated one neither one of us talked about, I know you're probably going to get to it, so I'm going to beat you to it. Jarvis Landry, the return of the juice. What better time?
took my thunder, man.
You took my thunder earlier. So that's
I was literally about to say, and Jarvis Landry's returning, so you have Odell with his partner in crime. So Odell will actually benefit from this as well. And this is where you'll see your sighting of Odell. You'll also see the juice come in for a pitch count. Also look for Rashard Higgins. Look, Hollywood Higgins. He had a big touchdown last weekend. Expect him to also just find himself wide open for another touchdown. And David Njoku, I mean, pick a tight end on this team. And David Njoku is probably the most athletic, but he had his game last week. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Harrison Bryant this week. And so, look, I think there's so many weapons for this Browns offense. It outweighs the defensive capabilities of the Cardinals. And I think the injuries to the Cardinals, and especially Cliff Kingsbury, is going to hamper this team for sure. And no other coach will be able to say they won a game on their couch other than Kevin Stefanski.
That is true. Like he does have that mantle. So Zach, break it down for us why you're picking the Cardinals. Why do they take flight here in Cleveland?
Well, it's kind of funny. You talk about, depth of corners and depth of secondary in Cleveland. That's actually what I think will be their downfall, is just the diversifying amount of targets that you can have with Arizona. I know that Cleveland is going to have their case too. You just mentioned about how Rashad Higgins looked nice last week. You got Jarvis Landry coming back. Odell can.
Oh, I think Zach's frozen.
Yep, I think he is frozen right now, as you said too. So, Kelsey, we're going to go and jump into you real quick until we get Zach back here really quick. Mike, here's the question to you: is the offensive line for the Cardinals is really, really dinged up right now? J.C. Treader, there we go. Now we got back. Now we got it.
I was wondering if it was down. Basically, I'll do a quick synopsis because screw internet connection at times. Sorry, not on you. Just it happens to happen. But anyway. Simply put it, I think the diversification of that receiving core for Arizona, I actually think that is a hindrance towards Cleveland. I know that the depth was kind of the argument there in terms of secondary. That's my angle on it. Also, I don't know. I just feel like that if you're able to play an offensive game and you're able to keep this as a shootout, which I think Arizona can do that, I think it plays into their favor a little bit. I could be wrong, but I feel like after last week's instance, which – by the way, divisional opponent against San Francisco, like they're going to know that anyone that knows that divisional opponents know you the best out of any team. So it's always there's always the possibility of a down week. I just think that you're going to see the same explosive Cardinals unit come back. Yes, Kingsbury isn't there, but that doesn't mean the game plan can't get executed as well. That's going to get passed down. If you're asking me, who knows? I think that the key is just how you and I view the secondaries for the Cleveland Browns. I know that there's injuries, but I still have some doubts just because of how many targets Arizona has to play with.
Yeah, that's true. No, that's fair. And so moving on, obviously this is a split decision for that one, 2-3.
Right.
For that one. But moving on to this one we don't have to really talk much about. I threw an island on there just for keeping it pretty. But literally there's no island pick. This is just an easy one. We're all going Bills. Does anybody have anything they want to add to this one?
Josh Allen continues to make an MVP case. Derrick Henry still rushes for 100 yards and stiff arms somebody into oblivion.
Yeah. Defense was never addressed in the offseason. It continues to show for Tennessee. So that is Mike Vrabel and company's fault for not trying to actually upgrade that unit very well. Bud Dupree was one element, but that's not enough to do an entire justice to that. So just my take. It's going to continue to be a problem throughout the year. It's their fault they want to be glass cannons. Go figure.
Yeah, you've called them glass cannons for 2 seasons now, and you just keep getting closer and closer to being 1,000% correct. You've already passed 100. You're working your way to 1,000% correct every single week. So
that's all they want to play. They just want to be these run everyone away type of units. That's it.
Derrick Henry or bust.
And they're definitely missing Arthur Smith. They miss him more than they will admit, especially for a team with a winning record. They still miss that guy.
Anything in the pass game is hurt. It seems like it has been a slog for them right now. Just not getting the looks they want.
Absolutely.
That's a big thing for them. Just not getting those looks.
Well, now for the Sunday night game, one that we have a bit of vetted interest in, and it looks like I am alone on this one, guys. It looks like you're leaving me out to dry.
So Kelsey, do we school DJ, or do we let DJ just explain why he thinks this will be?
I feel like I gave him a valid case earlier with Geno Smith. So while he's sitting here in his Dr. Evil look, I'm going to let him go first.
All right.
You made my case for me. Add all that and add in the fact that the Seahawks defense, while overall it hasn't been great, there have been a lot of times when it looks really, really good. There's been moments it looked really good against the Rams for the most part until they just kept getting put on the field. That Pittsburgh offense is not scaring anybody. Chase Claypool is not 100%. There's no Juju. Deontay Johnson's banged up. that offensive line, as Kelsey has said on numerous occasions, is not trustworthy. They were getting Najee Harris hit way too many times.
They're getting better, though.
Yeah, they are.
That is such a big hole to climb out if there's still a ways to go. So look for it to be ugly. Look for Geno Smith to make just enough plays to a Tyler Lockett and a DK Metcalf, and the offense to not be scramble, 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 bombs away. I think they're going to call an actual passing attack game today. Like, we're going to see those tight ends get utilized because they see TJ Watt over there and like, Geno's not evading him probably. We're going to get the ball out of his hands and get moving. And I think they're going to find a way to do that. We're going to see Tyler Lockett, maybe even like a 10-catch day for like 100 yards, just short slants, crossing routes, pigtail routes, and then use the threat of DK to open things up and maybe hit DK late as well. Maybe it's going to be ugly. It's going to be like 20-17 probably. It's not going to be pretty. But I think Seattle can pull this one off in Pittsburgh. I think they could travel and be like, once again, the redemption for Super Bowl 40, which you will hear from everybody in the Pacific Northwest until the end of time. So
you might hear it from some of the people we get on Colorcast later on today.
Yeah, right.
Depending on if we can find any Seahawks fans.
Give me Seattle in this one in a very close affair. I think they can cover the spread, if nothing else, as well, to that 4.5 point spread, as I mentioned during our betting segment. But I like Seattle's chances here, weirdly enough. I think they have a weird shot. Like, this could be the game they win without Russ. Just this one, though. They'll probably go winless without him otherwise.
So fun fact for you. It's Alumni Weekend in Pittsburgh. Last time Pittsburgh lost on Alumni Weekend was in the early 2000s.
So when Ben was actually, not 50.
When he wasn't the quarterback.
That's how long.
Charlie Batch, I believe, was their quarterback at that point in time. But look, this is
when this man was still playing for the Miami, Ohio Redbirds.
Yeah. So look, I look at this team, and obviously Najee Harris just had his first 100-yard rushing game last week, by the way, because of that offensive line, namely the right side of that offensive line behind Trey Turner. Looking very good.
The level of competition, too. I mean,
hey, the level of the Seahawks competition, let's be honest right now. The Seahawks defensive line, not great. Seahawks secondary, not great. You have a linebacker who plays safety, but
the level of the competition has been pretty good if you look at it. I mean, they have played multiple division leaders, including the team like the Rams. I mean, they played.
No, I'm the level of the competition being the Seahawks. The Seahawks are a very low level competition right now. I mean, they're not great. You have no starting running back, you have no starting quarterback, you have 2 injured offensive linemen, you have a defensive line that has been underperforming. Well, they overperformed the first game. They've been underperforming since. You literally have cut your secondary in half. And who are you going to – I know there's a terrible offensive line on the other side for Pittsburgh, but who are you going to have cover a guy for 3 seconds if they don't exist? Like, you got rid of anybody who has any starting time on the secondary.
I say the same thing with the Steelers secondary. I mean, who on there is covering really? When Minka's playing center field, and then the corner's not exactly terrifying.
I have Minka. Yeah, I have Minka. Minka is my trump card. I don't have Jamal. You're going to tell me Jamal Adams is going to get a pick in this game?
We both know that's not true. No one said that. No, don't try and twist my words and make up things that didn't happen. Now, this is not a CNN debate. You don't get to change what was said now.
But that's my point. Like, at this point in time, Minka in center field against Geno Smith, I feel comfortable.
If you're going bombs away, I specifically said they're not going bombs away. They're taking his center field out of it by throwing it underneath. That's why I specifically said that.
That's possible. It's completely possible. But I still don't think it happens. I think we see a complete game from Najee Harris this week. I think we had 100 yards rushing, 100 yards receiving from Najee, and you also have Deontay Johnson out here that'll just, I feel like he'll have a nice little week because there's not going to be anybody able to guard him. And for all intents and purposes, Ben won't look terrible. He's going to prove people wrong today that he's not completely dead. This is going to be the only week he proves people wrong that he's not completely dead, and it's going to surprise somebody. Sunday Night Football, Ben performs on Sunday Night Football. I said all those nice things about Geno earlier, but I'm being fair to Geno. Geno doesn't deserve all the hate that he gets from all the pundits out there. He is not a terrible quarterback. He is just an average, slightly above average quarterback in the NFL.
If I'm not mistaken, the last time we saw Ben on Sunday Night Football, he threw like 4 picks in the first quarter to the Browns.
Was that Sunday Night Football?
Yeah, it was the late night game of that week. So we tried to call that game, but technical difficulties. It was around 7:30, 8 o'clock our time at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wasn't that the playoffs though?
Yeah, it was still Sunday night though.
No, playoffs are a different story. Regular
you
season
said Sunday night. It was Sunday night. It had Chris Collinsworth stammering his way through it. It was still Sunday night.
Is it in the book?
Regular season Sunday night is different from postseason.
Now you're changing it again. Like you got to be more specific.
No, okay. Well, I'm sorry that I wasn't including playoffs in my brain cells.
I was just considering his most recent game that took place on a Sunday night.
we're not counting playoffs in this situation.
Oh, excuse me. I guess Ben Roethlisberger's entire career is based off the one throw he made in the playoffs. Is now suddenly we're not counting playoffs.
We're not just debating whether Ben deserves to be touted on anything.
Talking about
he's
the fact
not
that he's
good.
looked really rough this season, and then
he's absolutely been terrible. He's been terrible this season. He's just going to have one good game.
I think this game's going to be really close. I just think
the blind look. Here's my theory with this game. The blind squirrel finds his nut occasionally. This is going to be the one time the blind squirrel finds his nut.
They found their nut week 1. They already found it.
This really, to me, it just hinges so much is on the game plan that they're going to use for Geno Smith. What they do to adjust. And DJ's point, yeah, dink and dunk offense can get you so far, but I'm not banking on Seattle defensively to be the one that holds down the fort so that a dink and dunk offense can chip away and keep it in play. I still think you're going to be seeing Pittsburgh get ahead, and then everyone's going to go, now what do? We got to bail on our game plan already. We're down 14. You got to start chucking it a little more downfield. That's when you get into trouble.
Look, and yeah, I mean, it's possible. Like 30 to 37 interception or touchdown to interception ratio. That means you're throwing more interceptions than touchdowns per game.
Rex Ryan.
Oh yeah, but also trailing every game.
There you go. He doesn't have that issue anymore. It's just
he doesn't have a running game to help keep him the ball. Like here, I don't think there's enough ability on the Seahawks offense outside of their receiving core and their tight ends, who I will say is very good, that this team can be successful. I think they are going to be hampered by TJ Watt, by Melvin Ingram, the man who doesn't wear gloves in the trenches, who I will always say is a terrifying figure. If a defensive lineman does not wear gloves in the trenches, he will hurt somebody. Not in a bad way, just like he is meant to just destroy offenses. And
we'll see. Either way, I'm taking
the
the spread too. We're running out of time, but I'm still taking the 4.5 point spread either way. And I think Seattle has a chance to walk away with this, especially if it's tight and close. I think they have a few more playmakers, even with Geno Smith at the helm. So we'll see how this one plays out as well too. And if I end up being right, Kelsey will just pretend it never happened. And if I end up being wrong, he'll never forget about it.
Wow. We're taking this sass 2 hours down the road here in a little bit.
It's going to be a long drive.
Just saying, that's usually how it works whenever I'm right. You're just like, nope, didn't happen, moving on.
That's not true at all. I've given you plenty of credit on things you've been right about. Kevin Stefanski
killed you inside every single time.
No, it hasn't. Not every time.
That's why you were growing the beard. It was self-loathing after me being right.
That was a depression beard, but all right. Well, yeah, we'll go with that.
It started with me picking.
No, it's because I got called Dumbass of the Week on TSS Fantasy Sports because I got beat by a half a vote. Like, Jesus.
I gave you a 1-up head start. I didn't even show up for the first round.
Yeah, and I killed it. And then they gave me the same question for the second round. I'm like, I already gave my answer in the first round. Nothing I can do about that. It's not my fault. I was set up. I was bamboozled.
We need to get out of here before this gets even more out of hand. I'm taking back control right now. Okay, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in for another edition of 4th and 4. This is we're glad we're getting you guys to tune in and join us for a little just discussion before we get into things. And again, if you are going to the Pittsburgh-Seattle game or the Seattle v. Pittsburgh game tonight in Pittsburgh, PA at Heinz Field, if you happen to be at the tailgate, we're going to be there. We're going to be live on Colorcast. It's going to be a fun time. We got beer, if you legally can drink it, of course. Keep that in mind.
We'll probably have some water for those that can't. So
play both sides. Yeah. Come and talk with us. Visit with us, too, if you're out there. It's going to be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it. We got a road trip ahead here really soon. So until next time, guys, stay tuned. Stay ready for next week. Always Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And we go for about an hour. So, we keep it tight. Somewhat tight.
Some days.
Some days we do. See you later, everybody.